Okay, so this is going to be a Tree Peekers podcast, episode 10, I believe. Had a couple little interviews that I've had set up that I haven't been able to make just due to timing issues. One guy's he drives a semi-truck, 18-wheeler for a living. He's got a story from just up the road here where I'm at in New Mexico, about 2 hours north of here in going towards over the pass, Wolf Creek Pass, of delivering fertilizer or something in his big truck, and he's got a sighting coming down the mountain, something 8-9 feet tall. I'm looking forward to talking to him. I've got something set up with Brenda Harris's son that we got to get back lined up. Work got in the way of that one on his end. We had everything set up, didn't work out, but it will. And I got the summer coming up, so got an opportunity to get some really cool stuff done. Especially Brenda Harris has an idea. We have an idea together to go out on location and take the camera and film some really cool stuff that she has going on her property and out in her neck of the woods. On her, she's got quite a few acres of land, I think, out on the Navajo reservation, going towards Fruitland or towards the Shiprock area. So, anywho, today, one of my favorite guys in this community, in the Sasquatch community, one of the top dogs, is David Paulides. You may know him from the Missing 411 books about people going missing in the National Forest, or he's got two books on the Bigfoot subject. One is Tribal Bigfoot, and I have the other one at the house. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the real special thing about Tribal Bigfoot is when he was doing his research for the first book, he kept coming across newspaper articles from the early part of America. I'm talking late 1800s, mid 1800s, early 1900s, all the way through, through the U.S., North America, into Canada. Stories of the hairy man, long before they called it Bigfoot, long before there was that name or anything like that. They had called it the hairy man, the wild man, things like that. And he kept coming across, when he was doing his research for his first book, he kept coming across all these newspaper articles. Well, he put them in this book, Tribal Bigfoot. So I just want to read a few of these today just to get a quick episode in. I'll read a few of these newspaper articles. I won't specifically read like David's words, and read like, right from his book, from things that he wrote, specifically from his mind and his knowledge on the subject, from all of his hard work on the ground talking to people. But I feel like some of these stories that he pulled from newspaper articles dating back 200 years, 150 years, 100 years ago are just completely fascinating and incredible. I mean, stories from Kentucky, stories from Vancouver, British Columbia, all through the Northern California area, Idaho, you name it. I mean, New York, everybody knows, if you're into this subject, the Beast of Whitehall and stuff like that in the New York area. Not everything is metropolitan in New York State. There's plenty of farmland and plenty of rural area all throughout the Northeast over there, and you got a ton of stories, man, from that area. And so let's just open the book here and let's find some of these articles here, and I'm literally just going to be reading. So like right here, check this out. The Pittsburgh Index, okay? Saturday, April 29th, 1871, okay? 1871. Long before they called it Bigfoot, long before you were hearing the name Sasquatch or anything like that, or, you really got to know how the Native American cultures across North America all have their own name for it. I mean, this is like, 100 years or whatever after the independence of America, and it becoming its own thing, declaring itself independence from England or whatever, and from the monarchy of England. You have stuff like this. So let's go ahead and read from the the Petersburg Index. I said Pittsburgh, I do apologize. The Petersburg Index, Saturday, April 29th, 1871, the Daily Index, the Wild Man. Who is he? Let's check it out. As most of our readers are probably aware, there is at present roaming over the United States a 4-aught, we know, making occasional incursions into British America and Mexico, a singular creature known as the wild man. We have before commented on his eccentricities, which many are various. At regular intervals of time, he appears in different parts of the country, creating always a great excitement in the neighborhood and a vast deal of discussion in the local press, with one exception, which we shall presently mention. Accounts uniformly agree as to his appearance. He is, see, this is so hard, it is literally like scanned. It is literally scanned out of a newspaper article, and it's really small, and it's at some parts the ink bleeds together, and it's really hard to read. But I'm going to do my best here. So let's start here from this part again. At regular intervals of time, he appears in different parts of the country, creating always great excitement and in the neighborhood, and a vast deal of discussion in local press, with one exception, which we shall presently mention. Accounts uniformly agree as to his appearance. He is preternaturally, what does that say? The next word is ferocious. He is preternaturally hideous. Pardon me, the word is split into two there, and there's a little hashtag bar or whatever, whatever you call it, a hyphen, whatever. He is hideous and ferocious, swift and strong. He has flaming eyes and, generally speaking, a horrent and uninviting aspect. The few rash mortals who have approached him near enough for conversation that he speaks in uncouth and unintelligible gibberish. Okay, so right there, if anybody knows anything remotely close to the Sierra Sounds, or you hear about me personally, my experience that I had in the Bistai Badlands over 20 years ago, I heard the grunting, I heard the growling, no gibberish, but if you've ever heard the Sierra Sounds recorded by Ron Moorhead in his hunting camp in the Sierra Nevadas in the late 60s, 1970s, I mean, you want to talk about gibberish, or I don't know why some people call it samurai talk. I've heard it referred to that. I'm not hearing it coherently of what it would be samurai talk for, but the gibberish, the all that weird shit that they do, I mean, the growling, the grunting, the high-pitched screaming, out here, I mean, on the Navajo reservation, they call it the howler, you know. You're gonna hear more stories like this as I go into different episodes and read shit from these newspaper articles. So let's continue here, but let's just reread this little paragraph here. His preternaturally hideous and ferocious, swift and strong. He is preternaturally hideous, almost like prehistorically. I think it's like let's use the word prehistoric. He is prehistorically hideous. It says preternaturally or something, but prehistorically hideous. That works better. Ferocious, swift, and strong. He has flaming eyes. How many times have we heard about their eyes glowing red in the dark? Right? If you're into this subject, you've heard that. This is from 1871. Okay? He has flaming eyes. Generally speaking, a horrent and uninviting aspect. The only thing it doesn't mention here is the hideous smell that accompanies these guys. Sometimes, not all the time. The few rash mortals who have approached him near enough for conversation offer that he speaks an uncouth and unintelligible gibberish. So far, the received descriptions of him are unanimous, meaning everybody that brings up that they've come across or had this encounter or experience, it's unanimous, because everything intersects with each other. They're giant, they're hairy, they smell, they have a language, but we can't understand it, right? But they speak to each other. There's all these uniformed similarities that come in to with human beings that come into contact with these beings, right? I had someone in my family recently tell me Until I see a body. I've heard this 1,000 times, right? Until I see a body, I won't believe it. Well, until you start actually, being fascinated by the subject, and you read all this kind of stuff, and you talk to people that have had one-on-one encounters and firsthand experiences, you hear all these similarities. Thousands of people across North America, or for the world, across the world for that matter, the Yowie in Australia, the Yeti in the Himalayas, you hear a lot of similarities in the stories. And I'm sorry, but thousands of people aren't making up this shit, especially from 1871. I'm sorry, the 1900s, the 1850s, calling it the wild man, the hairy man. I mean, come on, dude. Nobody's making this shit up, dude. I mean, yes, you probably have some people out there trying to fake stuff, 1,000%. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but come on, dude. Ain't nobody making this shit up in 1871. For what reason? Dare I say that they just didn't have the, yes, you had authors who wrote books and wrote fiction. I'm not saying that, but you didn't have hoaxers and people trying to fake things to get on the front page of the Petersburg Gazette or some shit. You know what I mean? At least, I'm sorry, I don't see it being like, quote unquote, for the lack of a better word, idiots on social media trying to hoax things or do things for clicks or likes or something like that, right? This is a different era that this stuff is coming from here. So let's continue. Let's see here. Where did I leave off? The apparent discrepancy with regard to his stature, which varies in different narratives from about 4 feet to 10 feet tall. That's crazy, man. If anybody's ever heard like 4 feet, so maybe they're seeing younglings or juveniles as they call them, right? 4 feet. Even if you're a youngling and you're 4 feet tall and you grow up to be 10 feet tall, you're massive. You're a massive creature, Let's see here. So let's do that again. The apparent discrepancy with regard to his stature, which varies in different narratives from about 4 feet to 10 feet tall, is easily accounted for by observation. The mental agitation under which these observations of his person most necessarily be made, or he may have the power of extending or contracting himself at will. This would not be so strange as the faculty which gives rise to the exception above or referred to of changing his sex so that thereafter a horrifying experience in Alabama was known as the wild man. He will immediately plunge Oregon into consideration as the wild man. I'm sorry, it's really hard to read when some of this ink bleeds together from these old newspaper clippings that were obviously scanned and put into this book or whatever, So let's keep reading here from the Petersburg Index, Saturday, April 29th, 1871, which is just crazy how long ago that is, that they're talking about, the hairy man, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, but calling it the wild man or the ape man, the gorilla man, the hairy man, any of those, that's what they called it back then. His seemingly ubiquity in other perplexing attributes of his strange being. Superior to time and space, he thinks nothing of being seen simultaneously at points in hundreds of miles apart, meaning they're seeing him all across North America. Quite as extraordinary as his peculiar power of eluding capture. Okay? Think about what that just said. How many times have I heard from people who don't believe in this shit? Oh, why? I mean, we caught one yet. Why? I mean, let's read that one more thing, one more time here. Okay, from the Petersburg Index, April 29th, 1871. I want to read that one more time. Okay, his seeming ubiquity in other perplexing attributes of his strange being. Superior to time and space, he thinks nothing of being seen simultaneously at points hundreds of miles apart. Quite as extraordinary as his peculiar power of eluding capture. Right? Because this thing is not a monkey. It's not an ape. It is either prehistoric human being, a mixture of man and animal. It is something far beyond what we can understand, unless the powers that be know a lot more than they tell us, and they've got the info on this thing. Other than that, this thing is smart enough, these beings, I should say, are smart enough to elude us. They don't want to be seen. You're never going to see them. You happen to, if they happen to make a mistake or they happen to show themselves on purpose, it's the only time you're going to see them. Period. 1000%. We don't give these beings enough credit. Okay? Usually, all the able-bodied inhabitants of the district turn out en masse to hunt him with guns and dogs, but we have never heard of his being taken. Referring to the hairy man, Sasquatch, the wild man. After being up in his game, after keeping up this game of hide and seek in one locality for a few days, he departs for another with the same result. In all his wanderings, however, it is observable that he keeps aloof from the settlements, meaning he stays away from where the humans are building their, at the time, their little towns, villages, cities, encampments, whatever, right? He stays far enough away. Okay, where did I leave off here? However, it is observable that he keeps aloof from the settlements, conflicting himself, for the most part, to that Okay, right here. Got it. After keeping up this game of hide and seek in one locality for a few days, he departs for another with the same result. In all his wanderings, however, it is observable that he keeps aloof from the settlements, conflicting himself, for the most part, to the border of civilization, where contact with nature keeps the imagination fresh and vivid, undulled by the prosaic realities of city life. After flirting about the continent, or flitting, after, like I said, the way that this ink bleeds together, it's from these old newspaper articles, is tough. After flitting about the continent this manner for a while, he suddenly vanishes into impenetrable obscurity, where he rests quiet perhaps for months. Then he reappears, and the program is renewed as before. This is a big article. This is a big newspaper article. It's huge, right? And it's so tiny. It's hard to read. My kudos to David Paulides for going rummaging through the past and digging through North American, United States of American history, whatever you want to call it, and finding these stories. Like I said, I don't think I can read his words in particular, like his opinions and whatever from this book, but as for what he found from these newspaper articles, I think it needs to be shared. And I don't feel like me plugging this book. If you're into this subject, if you ain't got it already, it's a fascinating read, and I encourage anyone to go out and get it themselves. Tribal Bigfoot, you know, it's incredible, you know. So let's see what else I got here. We've been led to return to this subject by the recent appearance at once of the real. We have been led to return to this subject by the recent appearance at once of the real and the. It's an unreadable word here. By the recent appearance of the wild man in Tennessee and Michigan, respectively. The Michigan monster, in some aspects, credibly prepared and shows ingenuity in its. Some of these words are so hard to read. I'm going to skip here because I can't. When the ink blends together, it's just so hard to read it. Its appearance is well calculated to deceive. To begin with, it is fearfully deformed, a sufficiently obvious trick, but still effective. Then its hands are covered with long coarse hair, face grown full of rank whiskers, while its eyes look like those of a wolf. These details, it must be admitted, show a skillful handling, and only a practiced eye could detect the description. But the one fallible test of the true wild man is here wanting his defense of pursuit. Some of these words are so hard to read. The ink blends together, and it doesn't allow you to, it doesn't help you anyway when you're trying to read it. It is more than mortal if his more than mortal speed fails to outtrip his would-be captors. He either subsides into the ground, you can't even read the next part. This next part of the thing, everything blends together. So that's not going to work. That is not going to work. We're going to skip ahead here. This one's a little bit easier to read. So I did my best from the Petersburg Index, right? I did my best. But once I get over to this side of the page, these words are all, I mean, it's really, really tough. So I did my best. I hope I did somewhat of justice there. But let's skip to the Hammond Times, October 25th, 1935. So we're skipping ahead about 100 years here, okay? Reports tell of a Canadian monster man. That's what it says, right? Reports tell of a Canadian monster man. Cool? Here we go. Settlers 50 miles from Vancouver describe hairy giants. Okay? Come on. 1935. I don't think we're making any shit up here, okay? Settlers 50 miles from Vancouver describe hairy giants. Vancouver, British Columbia. The Sasquatch man, remnants of a lost race of wild men who inhabited the rocky region of British Columbia centuries ago, are reported roaming the province once again. They never left. Okay? So if there were whispers and there were stories about them, they never fucking left. I guarantee you that, okay? After the absence of several months from the district of Harrison Mills, 50 miles east of Vancouver, the long, weird, wolf-like howls of the wild man are being heard again, and two of the hairy monsters were reported seen in the Morris Valley on the Harrison River. There's that howl again, right? The scream you'll hear in the middle of the night, or if you're out wandering through the wilderness and you happen to hear this blood-curdling scream or howl that sounds like a mix of a siren and a who knows, you just have to hear it. I've never heard that shit out there, but like I said, I heard the grunting, the growling, even where I am now, I'm looking south towards the Bistai Badlands from where I'm at while my daughter's at softball practice here, and when I think of those grunts and growls and whatnot, I mean, it takes me right back to being out in the middle of nowhere up there, and when our car broke down, and I mean, just completely terrifying. I mean, if that thing would have screamed at us, or if those things would have screamed at us that night, it probably would have scared us to death, to be honest with you, because we were already terrified. But let's see here. Residents in the district tell of seeing the two giants leaping and bounding out of the forest and striding across the duck feeding ground, wallowing now and again in the bog and mire and long waving swamp grasses. Reported agile as goats, the strange men, it was reported, after emerging from the woods, came leaping down the jagged rocky hillside with the agility and lightness of mountain goats. I mean, just think about that. That's incredible, dude. That's incredible. That's utterly fantastic, incredible. Something walking upright, bipedal, man-like, but a giant, right? Probably in excess of 9 to 10 feet tall. Who knows? I've heard of 11, 12 feet tall up in the farther reaches of North America, such as Canada, Northern California, Washington. They're massive out there. They're huge. That's why they call them giants. But they have the agility of goats to go up the side of a rocky mountain, the Rockies. The Rocky Mountain. It's just, dude, come on. Incredible. Flat out incredible. Let's see here. And I'll tell you this one that was scanned out of the newspaper here is much easier to read than the last one. But the we're talking October 25th, 1935 from the Hammond Times now, and the one that I was just on, the Petersburg Index, was from 1871. So, you know, we can definitely agree that 1871 is a hell of a long time ago. To even still have something like that in the records is pretty fantastic. So to scan it and then transcribe it over into this book, you know, yeah, there's obviously going to be some ink that bleeds together, and we're lucky to even have the story as is. So let's continue here from this article from the Hammond Times, Friday, October 25th, 1935. The title is Reports Tell of Canadian Monster Men. Okay. The giants walked with an easy gait across the swamp flats and at the Morris Creek in the shadow of Little Mystery Mountain, straddled a floating log which they propelled with their long hairy hands. Now there's a part of the newspaper article that's cut off here, so I'll continue where it picks up. Here we go. There they abandoned the log and climbed hand over up the almost perpendicular cliff at a point known as Gibraltar and disappeared at the top of the ridge. They carried 2 large clubs and walked round a herd of cattle directly in their path. Then the story picks up here, or the article, pardon me, says, the Indian story retold. The return of the giants to the legendary stronghold of the Sasquatch monsters recalls the narrow escape of an Indian at the same spot last March. A huge rock narrowly missed his canoe while he was fishing, and looking up, he said he saw a huge hairy monster stomping his feet and gesticulating wildly. The Indian escaped by cutting his fish tackle and paddling away. The same Indian declares the Sasquatch twice have stolen salmon, which he tied outside the house out of reach of the dogs. The latest appearance of the monsters was peaceful. They avoided the trails usually used by the people of the valley and molested neither cattle nor human beings. Molested meaning attacked or violently killed, murdered, whatever, right? Harassed, I guess, whatever. People who have reported seeing these giants on their rare appearances describe them as ferocious-looking wild men, 9 feet tall and covered from head to toe with thick black hair. And it says here, news clipping from the Hammond Times, October 25th, 1935, title, Reports Tell of Canadian Monster Men. Incredible. Just fucking incredible, dude. You know, that's that story. I'm going to give you one more for today. I'm just at about a half hour here. I'm going to see how this goes. Maybe 1 or 2 more. These little articles are short. So let's do this one. Stevens Point, Wisconsin, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, Saturday, February 16th, 1908. Okay? 1908. All right? Captured a wild man is what the title says. The lettering is kind of tiny, but I'm going to do my best here. The one next to it from Norwalk, Huron County, Ohio, Tuesday, June 25th, 1839. I'm going to need a magnifying glass to read that one, but I'll find one. If this goes okay with sharing this, we should be cool, and I'll be able to share these newspaper articles, I'm hoping, for the podcast, and it'll be something cool and neat to have if I don't have an interview. So, here we go. Stevens Point, Wisconsin, Saturday, February 16th, 1908. February 16th is actually my buddy Kiko's birthday. He's out in Sasquatch country in Portland, Oregon. Shout out to my brother. I love and miss him every day. February 16th. I'll never forget that date the rest of my life. That's his birthday. And here's Kiko's birthday over 130 years ago. So let's check it out. Curious find recently made in Velva, North Dakota. The journal is in receipt of a clipping from Velva, North Dakota paper from J. Thomas, who was formerly a resident of Keene, son of Mrs. John Thomas, who still lives at Keene. It relates to the discovery of an alleged wild man near Velva, not far from Mr. Thomas' home. It is slated that 3 years have been rumored of this wild man being seen by persons of veracity, but he had never been encountered at close range until a few days ago, when 2 cattlemen who were out hunting suddenly came upon him face to face as he emerged from a thicket of brush. One of them succeeded in throwing a lasso around him, and before he could escape, he was dragged to a tree and bound round and round with the lasso. Later, he was bound hand and foot and carried to town on a dray, where he was imprisoned in a basement. Now that's just fucking sad. It is what it is. I'm sure curiosity got the better part of valor there, instead of just leaving him be and leaving this innocent creature of the wilderness, this being, right, that lives out. I mean, no, we had to lasso him, we had to tie him up, take him in, put him, imprison him, which sucks. But it does. Human beings never cease to amaze me with shit like that. So it doesn't surprise me. Look what we do to animals. Look what we do to anything on this planet that we think we have, kingship over or reign over, due to whatever it is, the ego of man, or the that sickness in us that makes us think that we can imprison animals or hurt things that are beneath us, or other human beings for that matter. Shit, that's going down a whole nother rabbit hole. Let's finish this up though. Let's see here. One of them succeeded in throwing a lasso around him, and before he could escape, he was dragged to a tree and bound round and round with the lasso. Later, he was bound hand and foot and carried to town on a dray, where he was imprisoned in a basement. His only clothing was a loin girdle. Okay, his only clothing was a loin girdle of sheepskin tied with binder twine. He had not been shaved or had a haircut in years, and being a man of extremely hairy variety, he presented a very grotesque and wild appearance. Think about that. A very grotesque and wild appearance. If you've ever heard someone terrified by by running into a Sasquatch in the wild, they definitely describe it as grotesque and terrifying and all of the above, right? So let's see here. His eye teeth are reported to be unnaturally elongated in the form of tusks. Sorry, but that's not a human being. If your eye teeth are coming out of your mouth like tusks, who knows, man? I mean, it's just fucking fascinating. This is just fascinating shit. Let's see here. Let's just read this whole part of it. He had not been shaved or had a haircut in years, because they're thinking it's just a man who is living out in the wild, okay? But far from it, right? Maybe some part of human DNA is in there, but it's something all together completely separate from us as well. Maybe it was here predating us by a million years or whatever, and then we spot, who knows. I don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but let's see here. His eye teeth are reportedly to be unnaturally elongated in the form of tusks. He refused to talk or eat anything, but drank water like a horse, half a pail at a time. The singular part of it is that this man has always been seen within 2 miles of the village of Velva. Once again, this story from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, Saturday, February 16th, 1908. Just fucking incredible. I don't know, I mean, to some people this probably means nothing, but having had the encounter that I had out that way on the Vistay Badlands for 20 years, I thought it was a supernatural experience that I had with my friends when we got stuck out there for the night. But the more and more I read these stories, I mean, that burning fire of intuition and that fire in your belly that you get, that tells you your fight or flight response, or to get out of a situation, or the thing that we don't listen to in the modern age, right? Because they tell us to think too much, right? Instead of listening to that gut feeling, that burning desire that will always lead you down the right path. That tells me that I was surrounded by 2 to 3 wild man, hairy man, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call him, Bigfoot. When I had my encounter in the Bisti Badlands over 20 years ago, when I was a teenager, I just know it. And you know, there's this, like, reading all these stories or hearing modern encounters and hearing all the similarities to what happened to us that night, it's just something that I know to be true. And call me crazy, that's fine, I could care less. But let's do it. Let's do one more here for the day. This is from Twin City News, the Hammond Times, Monday, August 16th, 1937. Sounds like a bear yarn. It's short, so let's see what it says here. Boonville, Indiana, August 16th. They're looking for a hairy ape near today after a monster has terrorized the community. Persons living near Cypress Beacon, a few miles south of here, have told tales of encountering a giant beast which specializes in blood-curdling screams. There's that again, right? Blood-curdling screams in the middle of the night and leaves footprints larger than a human's, which we later, you know, came to know as Bigfoot, due to, I'm going to draw a blank on his name now, but what happened in Northern California there when they found all the tracks when they were building those roads, and came up with the title Bigfoot. Ended up in one of the newspapers out there. Hell, maybe that article's in here. Maybe I'll come across it down the road. But let's see here. Ralph Duff, a fisherman, first reported the animal about a year ago after his police dog was torn to shreds in an encounter with the beast. How many times have we heard that? This weekend, Mrs. Duff said she heard a terrifying howl late into the night and saw a towering monster larger than a bear. When she screamed, the beast ran away. Duff believes that the animal is a huge ape which lives in one of the caves along the river and has set a number of bear traps. Just fascinating. Just complete and utterly fascinating. There's a lot more of these stories in here, guys. We're going to call this episode 10 of the podcast. I hope it goes okay. I know I'm reading out of a book here, but the next one here from the Daily Advocate, 1883. 1883. Fucking incredible, dude. A Kentucky wild man. A man covered with thick hair who refuses bread but ferociously eats meat and relishes fruit. From the Daily Advocate, the Newark Advocate, 1883. We'll save that one for next time. Hopefully this goes okay. I don't know. We'll check it out. I'm hoping to be able to share this shit. So we'll see how it goes. Episode 10. Let's hope it survives. Later.